as soon as the check marks start to appear. There we are.
Okay.
And then I have to push this button over on Instagram. And I don't know if, why they set it up this way, but they want to make themselves seem a little bit special, I guess, by adding this extra step. So, all right. So I can see that we are live and that people are coming in the room. So I'm going to kick things off by playing the intro video, and we'll be right back with Bob King. I'm David C. Barnett, and you're tuned in to Small Business and Deal Making, the podcast, YouTube channel, and blog where I talk about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium-sized businesses while controlling risk. So if you're looking to take control of your future through buying a business one day, or if you already own a business and you're looking to grow or exit, you've come to the right place. I talk about interesting things, I talk to interesting people, and I answer your questions every week right here. So be sure to hit like and be sure to hit subscribe, and let's get to it. Are you thinking of growing your business or beginning a journey into entrepreneurship? Take a shortcut to success by buying an existing and profitable business the right way. Visit businessbuyeradvantage.com and learn more about my online training, group coaching, and consulting services designed to help you win. All right, everyone, I got a great show lined up for you here today. Thanks for joining me live. We've got a guest, Bob King, who is author of the book, The Joy of Closing. And today we're going to be talking about sales. We're going to be talking about his book. And we're going to be talking about the difference between working in sales and being a closer. And I know that Bob's excited to talk with us. But before we get into any of that, I got one big question for you, Bob.
Yes, David.
When I spoke with you when we were organizing this live event, you were
Yes.
about to catch a flight to Halifax because you were going to tour the
I was at
Maritimes
the
this
Newark
summer.
airport. Yes. Yes.
And yeah, and that's where I live. So I got to ask you, how was your trip to the Maritimes?
I loved it. We had the greatest time. I did a road trip through the Maritime provinces, one of which you're in, and I took some of your advice. Went to the rocks, with the Bay of Fundy.
Yeah.
Hopewell, I want to say, or was it?
Yeah, Hopewell Rocks. It's a 20-minute drive from my house.
Yeah. It ruined oysters for me. Now I used to love West Coast oysters, and now every time I eat oysters, I'm like, the ones on Prince Edward Island were a little bit. So it ruined oysters for me, but we had the greatest time, and took some of your advice as well. So thank you for that. And went to one of the living museums, the one up in Acadian country.
Yeah.
Which I'd never been to a living museum. That was super cool. Just ate so much seafood and had such a good time. So thank you for living in a beautiful place.
Well, thank you. Thanks for coming, and I'm glad you had a good time. So I read your book, and I'm going to show the cover just for anyone who wants to check it out. This is what it looks like. The Joy of Closing. It is in my Amazon store, which you can find by scanning that QR code on your phone or by going to dcbbooklist.com. And so it is The Joy of Closing, the definitive guide to building trust, getting the deal, and crafting and creating happy customers. And so let's get started by finding out just who on earth you think you are to write a book like this. So why don't we get back to sort of your backstory? How did you get into the world of sales, and then we'll talk about how you differentiate sales from closing.
Sure. I was a filmmaker. Went to film school. And had some success, but I never really found a way to make money. This thing called the global economic collapse came along in 2007 through 2009, kind of wiped out what was keeping me financially afloat, and I needed to get a job. And with the skill set that I had, I was offered a bunch of sales jobs, and the one that paid to train you was for a solar company.
Okay.
And the guy doing the training was a guy who could sell you a blender at the state fair on a day you never thought about blenders. I love con artist movies. I always loved them. I always wanted to know how they did it. And so I took the training, A, because they paid you, and B, because I wanted to know how they did it. And about the Wednesday of the second week of training, they gave away the sort of trick that you were supposed to pull to engage the customer's greed and produce a one-call close. And I was fascinated. And I didn't think anything would come of it. other than me making my rent that month and finding out some cool, crazy things. But I went on a couple of sales calls just, because I felt like I owed them, and turned out I was really good at it. And then realized I was working for scoundrels, moved to a different company that was a little better with a similar trick, not the same one. So I got a variety of one called closing techniques under my belt. And then I worked for a solar startup. And, it's a yogic saying that if you want to learn something, practice it. If you want to master it, teach it. And I really mastered closing by teaching other people how to close. And, but along the way, what kept me going was not financial success, but all the ways that learning how to earn a customer's trust and get them something they want, which is really what closing is, made the rest of my life better. And that's really what got me hooked. And I could see that in the people I was training as well. So, what made me write the book was I really didn't want anyone else to be trained the way I was, which was to use your self-will and engage the customer's greed. When what I discovered was if you can really build trust and be a trusted expert, not just act like one, and work with the customer's resistance to get them something they want, that there's a real value in that, not just for closers, but really it's something we all do in life. And I wanted to write a book that brought attention to the value of that and also how I learned to master it.
Well, I think it's fascinating, and I really enjoyed the book because, except for my times as a business owning entrepreneur, and I guess maybe even during these times, I've always been in sales. So I've always had these various types of sales training, and I've seen all the diagrams and the models and how you move around the circle and all that kind of stuff. We do have a bunch of people that are piling in, though. I want to draw attention to. Victor from Nottingham has joined. He says he gave the video a like, and I want to remind everyone that regardless of where you are watching, if you could please give us a like or put a comment, it helps show the various algorithms that this is a great conversation that is worthwhile to show other people.
Is it your
And then,
opening video that he gave the like to?
well, he gave a like to this video because he's enjoying the
Because I
conversation.
like your opening video. I want to give your opening video a like. You're a good-looking guy, David. You come across very well, and I trust you, and I want to know more. So, congratulations on making a great opening video.
Well, thank you, thank you. It was there's a story behind that video, and it's a good story. But basically, during the whole of the all the different events of 2020, a bunch of highly gifted and trained video and audio people suddenly became available at reasonable rates. So, and I'm sure this is
I live
kind
in
of
a
the worst
house that was
part.
built in the 30s during the Great Depression, and every room in my house has these crazy moldings. And I'm told it's because it was during the Great Depression and like people just needed work. So they're like, oh, go put some moldings in there and, we'll give you 30 cents. So, you got to make the best out of what situation you're in. So congrats on that.
It's true. And we also got Kevin from Central Florida says, "Hey, good afternoon." And hi, Kevin, how are you? This is great because I have seen, similarly to your story, I have seen people sort of be taught what I guess we could call boiler room tactics. Like
Hmm?
there are certain methods out there that you can be taught, and if anyone's ever been to or if anyone's ever encountered certain kind of door-to-door salespeople, or if someone's ever been to, for example, a timeshare sales seminar,
Mm.
you're going to run into this kind of stuff. And interestingly, I was on vacation once about 20 years ago with one of my sales colleagues back in my Yellow Page days, and he had never been to a timeshare sales seminar. And I said, "We have to go. We have to go get the breakfast. We have to qualify for the free Disney tickets because you've got to see what they do and how they do it." And it was just, for people that had been trained and were well informed about the whole sales process, it was just amazing the stuff that you are experiencing. But
Because it's
without
a
the training,
microcosm.
you can really fall
Yeah.
victim to it.
When you have to earn that customer's business the first day, you have to be fascinating. You have to tell a great company story. You have to make the customer want the product. You have to make them feel the pain of their current situation and the pleasure of your solution. And then you have to use urgency to get their business, to appeal to both their lizard brain and their limbic brain, because the one thing they agree on is the fear of missing out. And so, all of that happens. But what I've become fascinated by sales in general. And I went to, I had never been on one either until I was writing the book, and I got a thing, and I was like, you know what? I need to see other, because I coached, different forms of closers and just salespeople that want to be closers and can become closers. But I had never seen the time. No timeshares have called me for coaching. But after the sales call or the closing, it was a Marriott vacation things in New York.
Yeah.
I kind of gave them notes, and then the real closer shows up at the very end, right? You think you're with the closer, but you're not really with the closer till they come in with the, well, what if we could do this? And I did sign up for like 4 more nights in another seminar. So I have one more coming just so I could get 4 nights in New York, but I don't think I'm going to be investing in that. We'll see how they are.
Well, tell me this, what makes your book different from other books on sales? And then I want to compound that by talking about the differences between sort of selling to consumers versus B2B. Because when I
Sure.
was reading your book, I was reading a lot of this stuff, and I was just wondering, this is great, but I don't think it would apply so well to B2B. So let's get into that about the difference with the book first.
Well, okay. So I can tell you, it has really worked well for a lot of B2B clients of mine,
Mhm.
mostly because I think the B2B, there's a lot of great books on sales and selling techniques and things like that. There's almost nothing on closing that isn't, well, I would say makes my skin crawl, but isn't in direct opposition to what my book tries to get people to understand, which is, again, it's about getting the customer what they want. Yes, you have to work with their resistance. And that sometimes means using urgency, right, to overcome their fear of missing out, or because the fear of the limbic brain says, I want this now, it feels right, I trust this person, this is what I want to make this change, let's do it. But you always have the lizard brain, saying, no, what if there's something better out there? What if the change is worse than what you have? There's all that resistance. And having the willingness to go with the customer, explore all that, really become someone that they can trust is just so powerful, and really what distinguishes the 20% of people who are very successful in sales from the 80% that still make a great living, because sales is a great job, but aren't really producing the change that customer's craving on nearly as regular a basis.
Okay. And so
you asked about B2B. I have a longer
yeah.
answer, but I'm trying to restrict myself to punchy, quicker answers, because I can go on about that for another 5 minutes if you want.
Yeah, so in the world of B2B sales, like when
Oh,
I've
yeah.
done it,
So
I've
B2B.
always found that there's a real difference between a small business where you get to talk with the owner and decision maker versus sort of a corporate kind of an entity where there's hierarchies and structures. Because when you're talking to a small business prospect about a business solution for their small business, they really are making a lot. They're bringing a lot of their sort of personal decision making methodology into bear anyway.
I would challenge you on that. I think what they really
Okay.
bring when you're talking about a small business with an owner operator kind of thing, they have belief. They have belief in a way that the people they hire, who may be better presenters than the owner, like they may make the customer want it more than the owner can, but they don't connect with the good intentions of the company.
You're talking about the person doing the sale. I'm talking about the person who's being pitched.
Oh, the person who's being pitched.
Yeah.
Whether it's B2B or ask me the question again. I might have missed it, but I
Yeah.
have a big point to make about that. So,
So when you're doing sales, when you're going
mm,
to go talk to a prospect, if you're trying to sell to other businesses, I think it's very different to talk with a small business owner as your prospective customer versus someone in like a sort of bigger corporate kind of uh, arrangement.
that's interesting. Who the customer is matters. Yeah, I don't know. I've done a lot of B2B consulting, but it's all with it's consulting like RSMs that then deal with salespeople that are directing B2C. So you're talking about being like 3 or 4 levels removed from B2C, And I don't have experience with that, but I would still stand by the idea that the principles in my book are effective, that the one call close approach is always that it's always better to get the deal at the first meeting. There's more money in the deal. You're not dealing with competition, and you're not wasting a bunch of time.
Yeah.
You're identifying a need. You're showing how your product and your company fit directly, are hand in glove with that need. You're making the customer want it, and then you're working their resistance to get them. The problem with the more remote you get B2B, so if it's a B to B that's going to sell to another B, I think that's what you're asking, right?
No, I'm talking about if someone is a salesperson who buys your book and their job is to sell solutions to businesses.
Yes.
The conversations they have with business owners who are their prospects are going to be different than like a purchasing officer with like a professional purchaser within the purchasing department at a big company.
For sure, because that person really can't make a decision. They can say no, but they can't really say yes. So yeah, I mean, there's different challenges to that, but you only have the element of surprise once. So making the best possible first impression is still incredibly valuable. And that's really what my book shows that particular salesperson how to do. Maybe they don't need to do all this stuff on actual closing, but the 7 steps in a forecast form of presenting, which again, I'm not saying spend this amount of time on your company story, this amount of time on X, Y, and Z. I'm saying you need all these elements. If you want to give the customer all the information they need to make an informed decision, this is what you need to cover. If you want to take them from chaos, I don't know what to want, I don't even know what I'm looking for, I don't know what's important, to the clarity of you providing the solution for exactly the change they're looking to make, you have one chance to give them an emotional experience of oh my God, oh yeah, I found it. We all know what that feels like. When you find exactly what you're looking for, it might be the first salesperson you talk to, and it might be the last. Well, it's always going to be the last, right? If that salesperson is effective, but you know that feeling, and most of the time, I'm not saying no one's ever been fooled, but most of the time that feeling is accurate. It's far more accurate that it's much easier. It's much more likely to make a bad analytic decision than it is to make a bad intuitive decision. And that's another thing that I wanted the book to speak to. And so why not inspire your customer?
That's interesting because people will often think that it's going to be more fruitful to try to really make an analyzed and focused step-by-step kind of comparative process for choosing the right solution, right?
Yeah. Well, especially in the internet age where anyone can find the cheapest version of something. Like anyone with a computer can find the cheapest version of whatever it is you're selling. And if you really believe that's the best thing for your customer, you're not going to be very successful. It's also probably not true.
Let's talk about the complexity or magnitude of the decision, because what struck me in the book is that when I think of single meetings resulting in a sale, you tend to think of more transactional things, like walking into a store looking for a pair of shoes, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But you were talking about, solar panel arrays for people's homes, high cost, high complexity, lots of, questions, lots of education. We were also talking about timeshares, which of course, again, have high ticket, prices on them. So can you talk a little bit to that about how it doesn't matter if it's a expensive or complex thing, you can still use some of these skills and methods to distill that down to one
Well, it
transaction?
matters in one way. If you are selling anything, the more zeros in whatever it is you're selling, the better your sales job is, and the higher you're going to be paid. So it does matter how many zeros. So if my book can't be effective with more zeros, then it's not going to be very valuable. So I think it is. I was trained basically in the early days of solar to knock on someone's door. That they set up the appointment. They knew I was coming. It wasn't like, cold, but knock on a door of someone who knew I was coming, tell them about some stuff, walk out with $1,000, down payment and a commitment to spend tens of thousands of dollars more. And it shocked me that that was possible. But once I realized it was possible, then as the solar business evolved, I went from that to knocking on someone's door who knew I was coming, telling about some stuff that they had just heard 5 or 10 versions of, right? And I somehow had to be fascinating for 45 minutes till I got to price. and then, work with their resistance to close them at a higher price because I was working for a better company with better equipment that would take better care of them than all the people that they'd met with before or that they might meet with after me. It happened to be true, at least from my perspective. No one can see the future. One of the companies that I sold equipment from just filed Chapter 11, which nobody saw coming. I think it's going to work out for them for other reasons, but I mean, you can't predict the future, but you can believe in your own approach. And if you don't believe in your own, the thing about closing is you really have to commit, right? It requires commitment. You have to give of yourself. And we live in a culture where that, and you can't inspire someone else's commitment without being committed yourself. And so that's also a big factor. And so that's true no matter what you're selling or how many zeros after it, or whether you're talking to the person who can say yes or the person who can only say no. You still want that person to become your advocate. You want that person to go back with their own expertise to the person who can say yes and say, I met with X, Y, and Z. And what I really think is best for us is this approach here. And that's your approach. And you only have one chance to create that feeling on the part of the person that you're talking to.
You're talking about commitment to the idea or the product, et cetera. And then earlier you had mentioned briefly that, an owner of a business may have a better job at being a salesperson because of that belief factor that's there. So can you talk to us a little bit about this, about just how important it is for a person going out and doing sales, be a fully, sort of uh, baptized adherent of the product or service?
So my perspective on it has been working with companies that where the owner has been very successful, right? And now they want to expand their sales team. And so what they do is they hire a bunch of great presenters, and they with the idea that that's what it takes to get a customer to move forward. When in fact, that isn't important. It's nice that they present well, but if you present your product really well, if you go to all these seminars on sales presentations, you learn how to not get your customers' shackles up and to ask the right questions and all that stuff, and you do great discovery. If you don't have the skills and the commitment to close that customer, you're just you're setting them up to buy the cheapest price. That's basically what you're doing. Or maybe do business with the next person that comes along that's just a better closer than you, that figures out what their objection is, addresses it, and now gets that business that you essentially created. You created that business, but you didn't get it. And that customer is not well served. Most of the time, that lower price is not actually better. It just gives them an excuse to move forward that you did not provide. So when I've seen this in they're smaller companies, but what happens is the owner has this great idea. They create a business to fill a need that is not being met by the marketplace. They have success because they were smart in doing so, and their intentions are really good. They believe 100% in their company's ability to take care of that customer, and that the decision that customer is making to move forward with them is not one they will ever regret. If they don't find a way to transfer that to the sales team, they will not be successful.
And is it just the confidence that just allows people to deliver information and say things in a way that creates then the confidence in the customer?
I think that they just need to be invited. I mean, they could read my book. If you buy 20 books from my website, I will consult with your company for an hour. And honestly, an hour of just talking about that with your sales team will bring more sales to your sales team than, probably even reading my book will. Although, long term, the other thing about B2B customers that are B2B, salespeople is a lot of times they don't really have a pitch. Like, they don't know the things that they're going to say to every customer. And I know that sounds crazy because those people make a lot of money and but it's amazing, like, how they do the sort of make it up as you go along and ask discovery questions and then focus on their pain point, which is not, it's funny. If you think you don't have a pitch, you have one. It's just really bad.
Right.
And by pitch, I mean, it's everything you say after warm up until you present price, right? Because it can't change. If you do the same thing as many times as you have to do that, there's two options. Like, well, there's really only one option. You get good at it and you figure out a way to make it sound fresh. And the way that it sounds fresh is by telling the customers things they haven't heard before. It's not by telling the customer things you haven't heard before because you're making it up. It's, what you say is going to be the same. If you're, what you say about your company, shouldn't be, you should know how to stroke their limbic brain, make them feel that love that you feel for your company, and make them want to do business with you. And if you don't know what that is for a large number of customers, then you need to work on your company story.
So, when you talk about pitch, Bob, you're
Yes.
talking about certain things, stories, way you present information that you do over and over again. So you become really good at it, right? Like if you
Yes.
always tell the same story, you're going to be very good at telling that story. And
But the
so,
customer doesn't know that,
right.
Right.
And so let me ask you this. Just for you said that most people, they don't really have a pitch. Is this because they've never really thought about the way customers make decisions and they've never really planned out the sort of path they want to lead someone down? Is it is it that they have never really plotted out, this is how I do it? Kind of, and I don't want to draw the analogy to how a fast food restaurant might make a hamburger,
I think it's
but
because they don't
maybe
want to
maybe
seem
I should.
salesy. They don't want to seem salesy.
Okay.
But what they don't realize is that if that first of all, sales is a profession, right? And you need to be professional about it. Look, there's two parts of sales. Sales is fascinating and it's different every time and it's wonderful. But the part that's different every time is not your pitch. The part that's different every time is the warm up, is the getting to know the person that you are about to talk to. That's always fascinating. That's always different. And you don't want to like phone that in. You want to know things, there's certain questions you probably want to ask and things like that. And there's a moment when you change from the warm up, hey, let's get to know you. And it might be 30 seconds into the conversation. If you're, taking inbound calls for some financial service, you're not going to talk about where they went to high school for 20 minutes, right? You're going to just get a brief sense of who the customer is, find some common ground, maybe pay a compliment, and then turn the conversation to what they called you about. So you honor the commitment that, and what that customer at that point is looking for is two things: a price and a scope of work, right? And they would love if you could present them out of order. But you're not going to do that, right? And so you're going, a sales call is a striptease towards price, and you don't show them you don't show them the goods until the money is in your G-string. And the money gets in your G-string by doing a full pitch, meaning tell them about your company, tell them about the pain of their current situation and the pleasure of your solution. Tell them, do a forecast, tell them you're going to, cover two more things: who's going to do it and what products we use. And then I'm going to give you a price. You're going to make a price presentation in a way that is designed to condition them for a higher price, and then show them what you've got. So they feel like when you say, are you ready to do this? The correct response is, of course, who wouldn't? You want their brain to say that, even if it doesn't come out of their mouth. And if you don't have a pitch designed to create that moment, then you are wasting an opportunity. You are not best serving your company, and you're really not serving your customer in the way that you could be. And then once you have that, once you present price and stop talking, then everything that happens after that is new and different every time. Because what makes one customer go forward is rarely what makes the next customer go forward. And so that part is fascinating. So if you're looking for your sales call to be non-salesy and dynamic and exciting, do a great warm-up and do a great closing. But your pitch is not the part where it changes every time, if you're a professional, in my opinion.
Right. In and this is great. In your book, you also went in a little bit in depth about what happens after somebody sort of signs a contract or makes the purchase, and just how critical all those other things are in the
Sure.
sales process. And I think that you talk about how salespeople may need to involve themselves in things that a lot of salespeople probably just want to avoid like crazy. Want to get a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, you know, the the thing about creating happy customers is it makes you so much a better closer Because when you present to the customer, you're presenting this magical world where everything goes smoothly and exactly as planned. And then they say yes, and you go forward. And then the real world happens. And in the real world, companies are populated by human beings, and human beings make mistakes. And so how your customer perceives that, well, first of all, how you perceive it, right, is really important. And with a lot of new people, they get this skill of closing, and then they get all these customers, and then they only hear from the ones where it doesn't go well, right? And so that can shake their commitment. And if your commitment gets shaken, suddenly you're multiplying everything by 0. And we know what happens when you multiply something by 0. But if you can, first of all, stay in touch with customers where it does go well, which takes some effort. You have to pick pain points. Anyway, not pain points, touch points. Yeah. You pick touch points.
Certain stages in the delivery and all that kind of stuff.
So it really starts really in the cool down, the last part of the close, where you set proper expectations for what your involvement is going to be going forward. Because most people, when you make a sale, they think they're never going to see you again, and that's true most things that you're selling, unless you will suddenly become their project manager, and then you want to set that expectation. But either way, you set proper expectations, you establish touch points, usually happy places where you're not collecting money, where you just give them an update on how things are going from your end or whatever. And then at the end, when you ask them for 5-star reviews and referrals, it's not the first time you talk to them since the sale, which is really important because you're going to need to close them on writing those 5-star reviews and getting you those referrals the same way you did on getting their business. And so I wrote a book about it because in my company, I had, a lot of 5-star reviews and referrals. I really built a referral-based business, which is hard to do in a one and done sale. And I think there's a lot of new ground in that section of the book. And it also talks a lot about how to get along with people in your company and to be a force of good and harmony, because there's always that it's sales wants to promise everything and deliver nothing, and operations wants to deliver everything and promise nothing. And I think that's really a false narrative. Like we're a rising tide lifts all boats, and you as a closer are uniquely suited to create a happy customer. You have you earn that customer's trust. They want to believe good things about you, and so you can turn a customer around faster than anyone in your company. At the right point, if you do it well. And so I put all that into the book so that people would learn how to do that and embrace it.
You said at the beginning that the first place you learned sales, you were taught certain things that turned out that they weren't quite ethical, and then the company.
Oh, no, they were scoundrels. They were
terrible. And the company turned out to be.
So I can say that they're not in business anymore.
Okay, so but here's the question I want to ask you: is if you had done this follow through stuff that you're talking about here with post sale stuff, would you have learned that about them more quickly?
You weren't allowed to. Like once you weren't allowed to see that customer after, like, even if you didn't get the sale. Like what happened is we were sent out to price condition them, and then if you didn't sell the deal, the manager would come in like 3 days later and cut a bunch of money out of the deal and sell it out from under you. So you literally couldn't talk to them afterwards.
Oh, wow. And so because
I was trained by wolves, David.
Here's what I've found is that over the course of my years, I've met a lot of people, particularly younger people, who will get into these scenarios and they just don't have the experience or the perspective to understand that they may be getting involved with one of these kind of shadier sort of outfits. And so for those of you who are listening and watching, like, think about this, think about the way that your organization is set up.
I think it's worse than that, because those companies usually have great trainers. Like you may need to, I don't know that I would have, that guy molded me as a closer. And it was really hard because I could see
this was the British guy, as you called him.
The English guy, yeah. He really molded me. Like he spent so much time talking to me. I trusted him, so I would call him up after the appointment. And because I trusted him, I would blurt out exactly where I blew it. He would tell me how I blew it, and I would learn how not to do that. And it was amazing, and it was painful because I immediately saw all the ways I had sabotaged my film career. by not being someone that created trust or made people want to work with them. But also I had the chance to make it better and practice it in microcosm, in this very intense environment where if I didn't make the sale that day, I was out gas money and time. And it was this weird trial by fire. But yeah, I think horrible companies often have very effective trainers because it's the only way they can be successful. And I hope you're not in that situation. But if you are in that situation, take the good and then take it somewhere else where, because if you don't, you can manufacture that belief, but if it's not really the best choice for your customer, there's only so far you can get. I mean, if you're, I don't know, if you're a decent human being, you like to sleep at night, which hopefully you are.
For those people who buy and read your book, what do you think is one of the biggest takeaways they should take out of
it? Believe in what you're doing. And commit to believing in what you're doing, and make sure that you really are a trusted expert, not just sound like one. Like it really comes down to intentions, right? It comes down to the intention of your company. And if you work for a company with good intentions, recognize that. Like, also don't hold your company to the standard you set in the warm glow of your pitch. Hold them to the standard that is reasonable, and you'll be surprised. Don't get in the way of your customers' happiness, right? Because sometimes, like, you expecting more from your company can make an unhappy customer out of someone who's actually really happy and satisfied. So that's why I wrote that whole third section of the book, is like how to get along and be a force for good in your company, and be that tide that lifts all boats, because you're making more money than anybody else at the company. If you're a successful closer, I've never made less money than my manager. Let alone the people in operations, right? And so you got to be nice to them.
To me, sales is almost like dipping your toe into the world of entrepreneurship, because especially if you're in a sales role where you earn commissions, because in a lot of the ways, just like an entrepreneur has to make things function successfully to earn any money, as a salesperson, you've got to be on point and know what you're doing and deliver well if you're going to make any money for yourself.
Well, they also have to raise money. Like, if you are an entrepreneur, you are a closer. I hate to tell you, again, closing is getting another human being to adopt your agenda and think it was their idea. If someone writes a check for your company to be successful, and some part of them thinks that it was their idea to invest in your success, or they would not be writing that check. So anyone who gets someone to write a check for something, that they're going to do all the, heavy lifting for, they are closers, whether they like it or not. So you might as well learn how to close effectively and feel good about it. The other thing about the third part of the book is it really allows you to feel good about what you're doing. And we know it feels good. Like, even if you're working for the worst scoundrels, you're never tired driving home from a sale, right?
We have someone who had a first
Moncton. Oh my God.
Yeah.
How I envy. I hope you eat oysters every day, David. If I was in Moncton right now, I did not start a meal without a dozen oysters that I had more than half of.
I'm glad you had a good time.
Oh, I want to hear about it. Do they get to talk? They don't get to talk. I want to hear about the scoundrels he worked for. That's so awesome. Does he work for someone now, or he or she work for someone now that you feel good about?
It's someone from here in the neighborhood. So
that's so cool.
Moncton's
beautiful, by the way. It is a beautiful city. Yeah.
Yeah. It's especially this time of year when it's nice.
I went to some like bar place on the main street that was so good. It was like the Pirate and the Pig or something. What was it? Oh my God, it was delicious. All right, never mind. We don't need to talk about
that. So what's next for you? You wrote the book. You said you were doing some consulting with businesses. How does this book fit into your future and where you have down the pipe?
Well, I will say, so when you write a book, like, I have not figured out how to get people to buy this book. Hopefully, I've inspired a few on your podcast, but what it has done is really upped my consulting.
Go to this website to buy this book, everybody.
Yes.
dcbbooklist.com.
And there's an audiobook that I recorded. There's a Kindle and a paperback, all for your listening pleasure and reading pleasure. So I'm really glad I wrote the book, and I'm really proud of it. And I'm happy that it's really helped my consulting a lot. and my coaching, but I'm still trying to figure out how to sell some books. So that's a big priority for me right now. Also, I'm doing some other writing as well, and still selling solar power to my referrals and repeats. So it's been a really fun. I love this time in my life. It's been amazing. And I get to meet great people like you who are so engaged in the world. And, podcasters are really fascinating people. And that's been a great thing for me as well. So it's all new and exciting and fresh. And I'm loving it.
Well, I would say that, if you have an interest in business, you should read this book, and here's why. The stories that you tell about the sort of the English guy who taught
It's
you,
a
sort of
crazy story.
the crazy tactics, and like, the fake phone calls
The
and all this,
warehouse call and all that
like
stuff. It
it,
is.
when I read that, I was just like, oh my God, this is like being at some kind of live seminar where there are plants in the room who are like, oh, I want to be the first person to sign up for the $20,000 thing. And they run to the back of the room to create urgency, fear of missing out, etc. But it's not real, right? And so like these guys that you were working with who taught you initially, they were doing all that kind of stuff. And to me, it was just like I found it amazing.
I'm so glad to hear you say that. I wrote the beginning of the book basically so people would understand how I came into the knowledge that I came into.
Mm.
And then there's, how to, I tried to distill the 12 steps I was taught into 7 steps in a forecast. And I did create something that's all mine, which is the 3 reasons. And I think if you're presenting anything, the 3 reasons is incredibly effective. And I've yet to coach someone who didn't have a really great version of it that they didn't find great success with. So I think that's my sort of one contribution to the world of presenting sales. I think the 3 reasons why people go forward with your product or service, which I talk about in the book, would help anybody. And then, the back half on how to create happy customers, get 5-star reviews in a referral-based business. Again, if you're just a sale, I wanted to write a book so no one would have to be trained the way I was, which is engaging the customer's greed and your own self-will to make them do something you want them to do. I think there's a better way to approach it that brought me far more success than that ever would have. And hopefully for you as well, but also so that salespeople and closers specifically to take that stigma off the word closer and really reveal it for what it is, which is an enhanced ability to get someone something they want. And that willingness to work with their resistance and be truly intimate with your customer. That is powerful and made my whole life better. And I think makes most people's life better who practice it. And I just wanted to allow them to have an awareness of it that maybe they don't have now. Or, or if you ever, bought a car when you were just looking and you want to know why, mystery revealed.
Well, for anyone that wants to improve their sales skills, I definitely recommend the book. Bob, I want to thank you so much for coming by here today. For anyone who wants to find you afterwards, I mean, we know that the book is available online, dcbbooklist.com. Where can people find you if they want to reach out to you personally, maybe find out something about your sales consulting roles, etc.?
My website is joyofclosing.com. My email is bob@joyofclosing.com. If you buy 20 books, I'll give you an hour of consulting, which, if you're a business owner and you have a sales team, that could bring, I don't know what you're selling. If you're selling things for a penny, it may not pay off. But if you're selling things for more than that, it's probably going to pay off long before you think it will. And it'll just be a fun ride too. I think they'll have a good time and they'll be excited about doing the stuff in the book. So it's always a great way to start. And then I'm on LinkedIn as well. Awesome. And I have a TikTok page that I never update, but I will. I've got to start doing it, called The Joyful Closer. And I have an Instagram. I'm everywhere.
I will update the show notes after this is done to include your LinkedIn and the website that you mentioned, so that anyone who's listening or watching this afterwards can find it down below in the description box. But Bob, I want to give you a big thank you for coming by today.
What a treat! David does his homework and also knows a lot about traveling through the maritime provinces anyone's going, probably DM him directly, and he'll tell you about it.
It's from
Awhile
years of
rocks.
traveling around as a territory sales rep. I've been in every little corner. That's
It's
how I know.
true. You do. I mean, I can tell you like weird and delicious restaurants in every corner of Los Angeles. It's an interesting. It's when you spend enough time doing something, there's just weird stuff that you learn that is super exciting and fun. It's been great. It feels like it's been like 10 minutes we've been talking. Boy, does the time go by fast.
All right, hang on right there. For everyone else, thank you very much. Don't forget, hit like, and if you really want to help the show in a big way, share it from YouTube onto another social platform. It's the biggest indicator in the algorithm that shows that people really enjoy the content and it's good stuff. And with that, I'll say see you later, and we'll talk to you next time. So, how can you learn more about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium-sized businesses? Easy. Go over to my blog site, davidcbarnett.com, where you can learn more about me and how I work with my clients. You can learn more about my books and courses that I've prepared for you. You can find out how to subscribe to my email list, the YouTube playlists, and more. There's literally hundreds of hours of content there, all for free, and I'd love for you to be my guest. Special thanks go to Mark Willis at Lake Growth Financial, today's video sponsor. Mark helps people better manage their personal and business finances through the Bank on Yourself insurance strategy. This is something I've done personally and I've seen others use it successfully for years. Go to newbankingsolution.com to find all the interviews I've done with Mark and learn more about the advantages of these programs. While there, sign up for a free consultation to learn what this solution might look like for you.